The sky was calm, painted in streaks of orange and violet as the plane cruised smoothly at 30,000 feet. Most passengers were lost in their own little worlds, some sleeping, some flipping through in-flight magazines, others tapping on screens. In row 17, a quiet teenage girl named Ava sat alone by the window, her backpack tucked neatly under the seat, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't spoken a word since boarding. Her eyes traced the clouds, though her mind was elsewhere, grieving, remembering, holding tight to the final moments she'd spent with her father just a week earlier. Then, without warning, everything changed. The cabin lights flickered once, then died. The hum of the engines, constant, comforting, sputtered out, replaced by an unnatural silence. The kind that doesn't belong in the sky. Gasps filled the air. Trays rattled. A baby began to wail. And then came the sharp hiss of the oxygen masks dropping, swinging wildly in front of panicked faces. The plane had lost all power. A flight attendant's voice cracked through the intercom, shaky and unsure, trying to calm the growing fear. Passengers clutched each other. A man near the front shouted a prayer. Ava didn't move. She blinked once and looked out at the endless sky, so still, so quiet, too quiet. She inhaled deeply, her fingers tightening around the silver bracelet on her wrist, her father's. And then, slowly, purposefully, she unbuckled her seatbelt, the fear in her eyes giving way to something else, a memory, a resolve. Amid the swirling panic, Ava stood in the narrow aisle, unnoticed at first. Her thin frame and quiet presence made her nearly invisible, especially against the backdrop of chaos. Passengers fumbled with oxygen masks. A woman screamed that the plane was falling. A man shouted for someone to do something. But Ava's eyes remained clear, her breath steady. She moved forward carefully, gripping seatbacks for balance. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this moment. Not in this crisis. She was supposed to be heading home to Virginia, after saying goodbye to her father, an Air Force veteran and lifelong pilot who had died just days ago. But here she was, and his voice was in her head, calm and clear, "Trust the instruments, trust yourself." As a flight attendant stumbled by, Ava reached out and gently grabbed her sleeve. "I think I can help," she said softly, almost too softly to hear over the noise. The woman looked back, confused. "What?" Ava repeated, a little louder this time. "I can fly this plane. Please, just listen." The flight attendant hesitated. She was trained for emergencies, but nothing in her manual covered teenage girls volunteering to fly commercial jets. Still, something about Ava's eyes, so calm, so certain, cut through the panic. With a trembling hand, she keyed her radio, eyes never leaving Ava's face. "There's someone who says she can help." She didn't know if it was crazy or a miracle. But sometimes, in the middle of fear, hope looks like a whisper. The cockpit door opened with a jolt. Inside, red warning lights blinked like heartbeats, casting a dim glow over the lifeless bodies of the pilots. The captain slumped over the controls, unmoving. The co-pilot, unconscious from the sudden loss of cabin pressure, leaned back in his seat, oxygen mask dangling uselessly from one ear. The room was stifling, tense, filled with the low whine of emergency systems searching for something to hold on to. Ava paused at the threshold, her heart pounding. She had never stepped foot inside a real cockpit before, only the simulator her father had built in their garage, a project they'd spent years perfecting. She had always thought of it as a game, a connection to him. But now, it was the only thing standing between life and tragedy. She climbed into the seat, her fingers moving instinctively. Battery switches. Backup instruments. Manual controls. She didn't flinch when the systems blinked at her with warning codes. Instead, she whispered under her breath, repeating the instructions her father had drilled into her: "Stay level. Keep your airspeed. Trim it out." Her voice crackled through the radio to ground control. "This is passenger Ava Richardson. I'm 17. The pilots are down. I have flight simulator experience. Please advise." There was silence, then a stunned reply, "Ava, we've got you. Just hold steady." And she did. Against everything screaming inside her, she flew. Not with fear, but with a kind of love. A kind of purpose. Her hands remembered what her heart refused to forget. The descent was slow, tense, and full of unknowns. With no engine power, the aircraft was gliding, a heavy metal bird falling with grace, but still falling. Ava's knuckles were white around the yoke, her jaw clenched, but her eyes were steady. Altitude numbers dropped steadily on the backup display. Ground control guided her through each moment, but it was Ava making the decisions, her instincts sharpened by every second spent beside her father in that homemade cockpit. Outside, the horizon tilted slightly as she corrected for wind drift. In the cabin, silence had returned, not from peace, but from awe. Word had spread. The girl in row 17, the quiet one, was flying the plane. Some passengers wept. Others held hands. One man pulled out his phone and whispered a message to his kids, just in case. But somewhere in all the fear, a strange, fragile hope had bloomed. Through a break in the clouds, Ava saw the airstrip, a remote emergency runway, barely long enough. Her breath caught. No second chances. She lowered the landing gear manually, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the radio. "Flare gently, now," came the voice in her headset. The wheels kissed the earth roughly, bouncing once, then settling. Screeches, sparks, then stillness. And then, applause. Cries. Hugs from strangers. A woman sobbing into her hands. A child whispering, "She did it." Inside the cockpit, Ava sat frozen for a moment, tears streaming freely now. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thanks, Dad. We landed." Emergency crews rushed the plane as soon as it stopped, flooding the aisle with bright vests and urgent voices. Paramedics checked vitals, flight attendants guided shaken passengers toward safety, and cameras from the tarmac began to flash. But Ava didn't seek the spotlight. She quietly stepped out of the cockpit and returned to her seat in row 17, as if nothing had happened. She sat down, buckled her seatbelt again, and looked out the window, eyes glassy with tears. No one noticed at first, not until a little girl walked by, paused, and said in a tiny voice, "Are you the one who saved us?" Ava gave the smallest nod. In the days that followed, her story made headlines: teen girl lands plane after power failure. Offers came pouring in. News interviews, pilot scholarships, social media fame. But Ava turned it all down. She didn't want applause. She just wanted to honor her dad, to live the way he taught her, humble, brave, kind. Instead of taking the spotlight, she volunteered at a community center, teaching kids how to fly simulators, just like the one in her garage. Some of them had never even been on a plane. To them, she wasn't a hero, she was a friend who believed in them. People often asked how she stayed so calm, how she knew what to do. She'd just smile and say, "Sometimes, all you need is to remember someone who believed in you, and then be that person for someone else."